Welcome everybody to the City of Erie Historic Review Commission meeting. Today's October 6th, 2025. We'll have the roll call first. I'm here, of course, Secretary Melinda Meyer.
Here.
Commissioner Jean Craig Pepper.
Here.
Commissioner Mark Tannenbaum.
Here.
And then, of course, Director Spry is here. Assistant Planner Cooper Moore is here also. First on the agenda, we will have the public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? No one's standing up or approaching, so I don't think anyone's here. Matthew, anyone call in, or I'm just asking just in case someone happens to be online?
We see no.
No.
There's no one with us online.
Okay. So the first item is the approval past meeting minutes. And did everybody get a chance to read those? Did we get a chance? Because I know they were sent about 9:44 or so. Everybody get a chance to read them? So we're.
Do you have a printed copy?
I have one here.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna give
Do you want to take a second to review?
I'll get it to you. Okay.
I'll give you a minute or so.
Thanks.
Mark, no questions that you've seen?
No.
Okay.
I thought last meeting was the best meeting.
Great. So do we want to move to,
It would, if everyone's have reviewed the meeting minutes, would someone want to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I would move to approve the minutes.
Mr.
I'll
Tannenbaum approves, and Jean Craig seconds.
second?
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, let's go to the COA report. And there's no report currently. There's nothing at the moment. Matthew?
That's correct.
Okay. Public correspondence. Has there been any public correspondence in the past month?
There has been no correspondence directly related to the HRC.
Okay, great. Okay, old business is next. The Citywide Historic Resource Survey. I guess there's an update, the closeout next steps. Matthew, did you want to talk about that?
Yes, I know this has been with us for quite some time. So the contractors that we hired to do our architectural survey completed all of their work on September 30th. So at this point, we're now going through all of the data that's been entered into PA Share. That's the state's management system. And we're looking to see how we can translate that data and share it. I can tell you that over the past week or so, we've had a few different meetings with a couple different kind of internal departments, external agencies who are all very interested in being able to see what has been identified as a potential historic resource. So we have a lot of work to do on our end so we can make it accessible and viewable. And in addition to that, the department has talked through next steps with each of the different neighborhoods that have been surveyed. So in addition to ensuring that this data is tied into different city departments and different agencies and authorities within the city of Erie, we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to meet with each of the different neighborhood groups and talk to them about what the survey results have found. It's always important to, I think, talk through this with different neighbors because the survey results are just based on architecture. So a lot of the different stories that I think we tried to accumulate throughout the process and make sure we're integrated into this, it's not finite. There's still, I think, opportunities to identify additional historic resources. So we surveyed nearly half the city. And when you kind of overlap that with all the different neighborhood groups that would be involved, we're looking at neighborhood meetings from now until probably early spring of next year.
So Matthew, you're going to neighborhood meetings and talking about this, or?
That's the plan.
Okay.
So we've worked with other members of the planning department that primarily do neighborhood outreach. And the idea is just that I'd be able to come along to the neighborhood meetings that they attend, and they'd be able to kind of open up some opportunities for discussion. And, continue that kind of public outreach that was, I think, really prominent at the very beginning of the survey process.
I know you can't catch everybody online, but I just wondered, have we shared anything on the City of Erie Facebook site or any other? Is it on the website? Just to kind of whoever's, if we could let people know it's out there, it'd be good to could do that.
Not yet. So
Okay.
over the past week, we've been actually taking down a lot of the different flyers and all the publication materials that we have put out. And the hope is that once we have more easily navigable material, to then put it out to the public and say, the survey is complete, these are the results. Click on this map and kind of learn a bit more about what was.
Is it ever going to be printed?
That'd be a heck of a print.
Yeah, it would be thousands of pages.
There is a report, though, that
There
Could
was an
be.
overview, yes.
Could
The
be
overview, which was a bit more succinct, rather, we could definitely print and distribute and also make available online.
And then you can go online and find whatever parts of the city you're interested in or whatever.
That's what we're working towards.
I see. So it's not in a user-friendly format right now. Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you know how to navigate PA shares, I think it's not that hard, but if you're going for the first time, I'm sure it's
It
complicated.
can be very overwhelming. Yep.
Yeah.
There is an overview that could be available.
Yes.
Can we have that at the next meeting? How thick is it?
It's a pretty hefty report. I can mail it out to all of you or email it out to all of you. And then we can talk about it a bit more with findings at the next meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like that.
There was some very, it's interesting to see the data that has come in and kind of how it's already starting to inform some of the projects that we're working on as a department. It's been interesting.
Okay.
But this is all to say too, that with this complete, we're also having conversations within the department about what our next steps are in terms of continuing on the survey work. So we only have, I think, 52% of the city has been surveyed, and then the intent was to continue the work forward. And we have tied that to a couple different state grants. So the cycle for the next few state grants is coming up. I think that the intent would be to continue on with our survey work. I don't know if, I think we have the capacity to do the other 48% of Erie, but I think that we can probably look to do a couple more neighborhoods and continue this process over the next few years.
Are there some neighborhoods that we know that are just too modern, that it doesn't benefit even the purview of it? Because certain parts of the city grew at certain times. Like I'm thinking above 26th Street or above 38th Street or, the area around Mercer's College, that I would imagine up to Grandview that's none of those houses or none of those buildings other than a select few.
Be careful. I think that the ghost of our trainers from last week might still be with us about modern buildings. I do know that when we intentionally divided up kind of what neighborhoods we were going to initially survey, part of that was, I think, in the decision-making process of what would either has already been surveyed or has already been determined eligible to be listed on the National Register. I'm thinking in particular like Frontier Park, in kind of large neighborhood districts that are already been recognized in some kind of way, and in more center on downtown, the port, and some of the underrepresented neighborhoods in like Little and Pulaski Lighthouse. So yeah, I think to your point, there was a conscious decision to segment out these different neighborhoods simply to prioritize where we were likely to see the most development in the next few years. I think that with neighborhoods, there's also less likelihood for change, right? That the neighbors that you mentioned around Mercyhurst or things like Frontier, you're not likely to see kind of large new developments or kind of things that really impact them immediately. So I think,
Other than Mercy, I mean, there are photographs of just Mercyhurst and then nothing around it.
right.
But we,
They were so far, they were so far visioned. Now those nuns were just,
when we were also looking at determining the study, what areas would be surveyed, we did look at the age of structures. And so you can pull that simply from the parcel data. So
But it's
that
just the
was
city,
taken in.
right?
Yes.
Yes, but there are parts of the city where, they're less than 50 years old.
correct.
But
Not many.
the main part was to look at areas in the core and surrounding neighborhoods to start, as well as areas that have been primarily overlooked.
And it is 50 years, correct?
50.
Yep.
So even those houses around there are more than 50 years old.
A lot of them
I think so.
I take it back, you're right. I forget,
It's okay.
that 50 years is nothing.
Forget how young you
are.
are.
Is there a county survey?
Not to the same kind of detail that was done in this survey. I know that there have been surveys done with historic properties in the county in the past, but not using the same kind of methodology or approach.
So the city has a better coverage of structures.
Yeah.
Good. Although the county should probably do that.
Well, Erie County has their property information, and there is information, in it, but not architectural information. It'll show picture, it'll show square footage, and typically for those things.
Well, and Preservation Erie also did a survey. So that also was, that was another piece of information that we looked at when determining the surveyed areas, yeah.
So my question for all of you is there any, because I knew that you were integral in moving this project forward at the very beginning, is there any other specific follow-up that you think would be good now that we have the data and now that we're looking to kind of go into chapter 2 of survey work?
Like areas to look at that I'm looked at?
Whatever you encountered kind of going through this process, or
It'd be
whatever
great
your
to see what
thoughts
we
would be.
don't see every day. Is there some type of pocket of buildings that we don't know about that were discovered, or is there an age of a certain neighborhood that, there's somebody out there that we know of, but is there something else out there that could be shown by the data? I don't know.
I think there were some very interesting, like, I don't know if I'd call them peculiarities, but things that I don't think that we necessarily would have thought of as historic. The fishermen's cottages down on Lake Erie were all identified as having historic potential and perhaps creating to the point of creating like a mini district. All of us kind of look, oh, well, yeah, there's a story to tell there, even though those cottages have been changed so much over time. There are, I think, a lot of good stories within the data that they provided us. We could also
Houseboats.
pay attention to.
They counted, and that's not the city,
Nope.
It's not to see.
Yep.
because that's kind of,
Yeah. They were very cognizant of city boundaries and making sure that everything kind of they did was within the city.
something that might be looked at is like the difference between residential and commercial. Because a lot of cities are adapting commercial property for multi-use and they're taking commercial property and becoming housing because there's such a shortage of housing. I think that it's always cheaper to renovate an older building and fix it than it is to build from scratch. Well, lots of times.
That's what I hear.
Right, it is true. But it's, there are things like the Packard facility in Detroit, that was acres and acres and acres, and it all fell into ruin, and now they're trying to work it back and make more industrial complex with residential connected to it. And, but it has to do, when it comes across my news feed, I guess, is a lot of renovations of commercial properties being, even office buildings that are, there's such a glut of office space because people are not going to offices anymore. They're making office space residential, that process. And if we're thinking about a housing problem in the community, there is, that separating out the commercial space so that you can look at that and see if there's an option to work with those buildings and find another use for them that might be helpful and end result of the survey.
Good point.
Rather than just focusing on residential, because residential is just going to be residential. Right. Just fine.
And Mark, that trend of converting ground floor retail or even commercial space into housing absolutely is something going on. That we'll be looking at hopefully when we get news of our state grant to rewrite the zoning ordinance. That will be something that we will address and vet through as we rewrite the zoning ordinance.
There
So
would have to be a process, a pathway to get
flexibility, more flexibility.
the zone a certain way in order to create different use.
Mhm.
I get that. But that would be something that this survey could help in that process.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments or questions about that? We'll continue on. Let's talk about the State Street National Register Historic District update.
Yep. I can tell you that the Erie Downtown Partnership conducted some interviews with potential consultants, and they have made a selection, although I don't know if they've reached out and let those people know and if they've accepted to start out. So I know that things have progressed, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward on the State Street National Register Historic District. There's been a lot of interesting synthesis that have come up already between the researcher that we hired to write the history of this building and a lot of the kind of modernist and planning components that have come out. Has provided, I think, a lot more material for the researchers that are going to do State Street to work with. So it's
Do we
all for
know
the
the
good.
streets yet?
No, it's going to be for the researcher to recommend.
What?
So the consultant that will be hired for this, it's their recommendation on how large the district can be.
I see.
So no, we don't have
So
an
we
exact
don't know where it
number yet.
begins and ends.
It'll definitely incorporate Lower State Street, which
Okay.
is that it's already an eligible district. And I think that the hope was to try to go as far south as possible. Most of the conversation was centered around 10th or 12th Street, and you start getting into some integrity issues there.
Yeah.
And then from east to west, they're looking to try to maximize the district size and take it to Parade Street if possible. Sorry, Mark.
I know, exactly. He's just mapping that out. That's not new.
So things are progressing, and there's actually just this morning we were having some conversations with
Ryan Polito.
Yes, from CRIS, about the overlap between the CRIS district and the potential State Street National Register district.
You've been saying that for years.
So it's all moving forward.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We'll move on to the.
Can I ask a question? Or no?
Of course you can.
Sure.
The downtown partnership is doing this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So the CLG project grant for this building, National Register nomination?
It
Update.
is also going very well. The consultant that we hired turned in a first draft of the nomination this past September 30th. And we've been reviewing the draft. It looks exceptional so far. The next step is for us to provide comments back to her and for her to continue working on the draft until it's at a place where it can be submitted to the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office for consideration. There was a lot of focus on both the design of the building as well as its role in government since its construction. And it's a very comprehensive narrative. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how we can make this information, again, publicly available once the kind of final draft is completed. And we're hoping to have that done by the end of this calendar year.
A draft.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from any commissioner on that? Seeing that, we'll move to the next item here. The NAPC camp that we just had this last week.
Right.
I think we were going to discuss it a little bit. Yeah, I thought it was, there's a lot of information presented, a ton of information presented. So any thoughts from any commissioner? Matt, did you want to say something first about it, or what was your thoughts? And we could have commissioners.
Did we record it?
And can we have a printout of her,
PowerPoint, I think they're PowerPoints.
We were not able to record it upon their request, but they will provide us with all of their handouts. They wanted to add, I think, a couple different slides into their handouts to reiterate some of the questions that came up and some of the answers. Sorry, Mark. But no, I found the session on, the morning session on economic incentives particularly interesting. It was so much information, it was really difficult, I think,
Yeah.
to make it through the entire day and digest everything. But over this past week, I've definitely had a couple conversations with people who were in attendance, kind of working through some of the topics that it brought up. And I think from our department as well, we're very interested in understanding and trying to kind of make all of the different resources in one spot. So if anyone has any questions about, where do I go to for economic opportunities, for grants, for anything, that there's a centralized location. Right now, it's really not. Every agency, every department, every authority kind of has their own, initiatives. But we've, I think, spent some time talking through how we can tile them together and be a resource for people to start with when they're trying to access these funding opportunities. I think that having the trainers here was a lot more impactful than when we did it online last year. But my biggest, I think, drawback was just, it was so much information.
So much data.
And it was, a lot of it was really tailored to us. It was obvious that they had done their research in advance. Right. And I thought that was particularly helpful.
Yeah.
Who all attended besides us?
We had a lot of people there.
Aaron was there.
And
3 of them.
we had each of the different sessions, people kind of came and went. So there was a session about code enforcement. So we had our code enforcement people come in. We also had a contingency of people from the planning department in Pittsburgh who were able to attend as well.
Did they come here just for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Our school department was there at every session.
So it was a lot. They cap us off at 30 people overall. And so we really tried to get people in and out so that we never really crossed the threshold.
We had 30 people.
For each session. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, it was.
For us.
and they were people that are
I'm sorry I missed
need
it.
to know it.
The solicitor, Jason, Jack was there.
Folks from zoning, and it was very well attended. And once we do have all of their presentations, then I'll send them out to everyone.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, the historic nominations, there are none. And then the certificate of appropriateness, also none. So nothing to talk about there. Next item on the agenda is the state historic marker. Is there someone here to speak about that?
I'm here.
Oh.
Earlier on this year, I put it in an application for a state historic marker for Richard Aniskevitz. For those of you who are not familiar with that name, although most of you probably are, he was a very prominent artist here from Erie, very active in the op art movement. And we were fortunate enough that the state awarded us the marker.
No kidding.
So yay.
Yeah, that's hard.
I think I think the last historic marker that came in to Erie was like 2019.
Yeah.
So this is good. But even better has been that since the news broke that this historic marker was awarded to Erie, we've had a lot of different community members and groups come out of the woodwork and express a lot of interest in participating in both a dedication ceremony and also talking through some way to celebrate his work here in Erie. And so it's taken on a bit of a life of its own and definitely pulled a lot of different community organizations and groups together around this. So I think what was meant to be a simple marker installation has turned into something a bit bigger.
Is it in front of his house?
Well, his house no longer exists.
Oh, because he lived on like German Street or they're down Lower East Side.
Yes, that's true. Fortunately, we no longer have his family house. It's a lot, but
Okay.
The marker's on a lot?
well, it hasn't been installed yet.
Oh, so we can put it someplace else.
So there's a lot of conversations, yes, about where to place the marker.
Yeah.
What's the most appropriate place in Erie? We've had a couple people reach out and offer to host the marker itself. It's been great.
I have a photograph of him with his art laid out on the roof of our building, on the roof of the PACA building.
I would love to see that. So the other side of this coin, though, is that while all of these kind of great things have happened in bringing the community together around Richard Rendiskevitz, we have kind of highlighted part of our own historic preservation plan that we had said that the city is to make a marker program, specifically, for buildings that have been listed on Erie's Register of Historic Places, but also to have the ability to have city historic markers. So one of the fortunate things about this program is that you're able to identify people who have had impact either on a state level or at the national level. But people who are important just to us in Erie, we don't have the same kind of ability to recognize their contributions. So we've also talked a bit about putting forward legislation to create a marker program and what that would look like. And
Here in Erie?
yes,
Okay.
and
Would this group oversee it? Okay.
that's the idea.
Okay.
So there's a couple different kind of sign and marker ideas that were put forward in the historic preservation plan. And the idea is that we draft all of these together and find an appropriate place for it to live in our code, and then kind of work through this same sort of process that we did before when we were revising Article 7. So we would want to present you with the kind of proposed language and get your input and buy-in to see what you think about this program. We would work with our council member to ensure that this could be introduced and that there is appropriate support and buy-in. But then we would be accomplishing a pretty large component of our plan. And by the same measure, we would also be able to, as a department, start tracking and inventorying kind of existing historic signs in the city and making sure that there's a clear process, that if this happens or if other folks wanted to put in signs, that we are maintaining an accurate database of where things are located, what needs to be updated, that kind of thing.
I mean, if I could suggest another artist, if you wanted to do it, would be Eugene Ibert. Eugene Ibert is probably the single most well-known, other than Aniskevich, but George Erickson was his real name. And he was a school teacher at Academy High School. So that would be a great place to put it. But his piece, I mean, just one of his pieces just sold for more than $100,000 just recently, this year at auction. And there are still some floating around in the city. And His, when he died early, and when he died, he used to do covers for the Saturday Evening Post and stuff like that. So when he died young, they were looking for someone who painted similar to him to replace him on the Saturday Evening Post, and that's when they found Rockwell. But the reason why they do that Rockwell became selected was because he was similar to Eugene Ivard, and not the other way around. And he is world famous, and there are some paintings of his still out there. I have a couple drawings of his, but no oil painting.
They're in the Hagen History Center. I know there's a couple up in the
Yeah, they're great.
ballroom up there.
Yeah, they're magnificent and funny, and a lot of his Americana, and a lot of his the subjects were eerie kids, and there's some data about who they were. In fact, that he would just get local waifs to drag a sled across the grass or across the snow, and he would paint their paintings and stuff like that. But he did the hill by Glenwood by Academy where the kids were sled riding. That's where that sled riding photo painting is from. So if there's other, and Plovkin was one of his students.
Right.
So as much as people love Plovkin, and I love Plovkin, don't get me wrong, but it's Erickson is Eugene Ivard is by far he's a nationally known
Figure.
painter.
I think that this is such an essential part of
Yes.
our program. In the plan itself, we talk a lot about how we are, stewards of protecting existing historic resources. At the same time, if we don't have a historic resource that ties into a specific story or help us celebrate one, that the Historic Review Commission is also being good stewards of protecting stories and the history of Erie. And I think that what we've talked about here is a perfect example of that. Like there's no Anna Skevitt's house here, but
Correct.
there's an opportunity for us to be able to celebrate his contributions and recognize that history as part of our own. So it's I'm looking forward to moving through this process. I think that to take it back to kind of next steps, for our session in November, which is difficult to wrap your head around, I think I'll be able to present you with some draft language around what a historic signage ordinance might look like and get your feedback.
That'd be great.
Okay. Any other comments, questions about that? Okay.
So
go
we're just sort of in limbo about where to put the Richard's
Maniskevich.
his plaque.
At the moment, yes, we've had 3 different entities reach out and offer to house it. I think that the preference is to try to get some consensus among each of these different groups about where is best to represent this. We've had probably a dozen different conversations over this past week, and then more for this week of trying to make sure we have everyone who's interested has the ability to participate. So
Now, this
We're
is
not there
part of PHMC's marker program.
Yes.
Okay. So don't they usually determine where it's going to be placed?
no, they rely on us for that. So they will, they'll come up with the language of the marker itself based on the application, and then they'll defer to us for installation. So we need to find a place.
And Matthew, the city is also the caretaker of these signs, isn't that correct? So that if
Yeah, who owns
one
the
were
sign?
to get damaged or something were to happen, we are required to replace it or keep up with or is that not true?
No, that's not true.
Okay, just
For
trying to
the state
understand.
historic markers, they are in perpetuity the property of the state. And so it's upon the state to keep up the markers. If one goes missing, they'll replace it. They have a routine maintenance schedule, I think, that comes through every county in Pennsylvania within like a 10-year period. So no, all we need to do is really identify where it can be installed.
So PHMC is asking our guidance as to where it should go.
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll get community consensus before we move forward.
Because they give a lot
Yeah,
of plaques out all year long.
since this has been in the news, what Matthew was talking about, there's community building around it. It's really nice to see that there are organizations coming together, neighborhood groups coming together.
We could have an art show.
So it's been nice to, there's community building around this process. And I think that's the important part about changing the code, is that we need to establish some kind of process to have, so that there's community buy-in for where these markers will go.
I just bought an Anaskevich last month,
I think to your point, though,
so I have a few.
one of the topics that has come up in this conversation is not only the installation of the marker, but how can we provide a bit more education around him, his work, make it a bit more available.
Yeah.
And so some of the preliminary conversations we're having is, how can we display maybe some of his work in City Hall during the month of the marker's dedication? Can we partner with, folks like Erie Arts and Culture or the Erie Art Museum and, leverage on their strengths when it comes to art education, but also provide an opportunity for everyone. So there's a lot of potential here.
And you said, where did he teach?
Well, he I think ended up teaching in, is it Yale?
Like Florida, yeah, and then he moved down to Florida. I don't know where he taught.
So he went to school, well, he
Where
learned
did he
how
teach
to
in
paint
Erie?
here.
And it was Ivard taught at Academy, but I don't know if Richard Anaskevich taught in Erie.
He didn't. He ended up living in New Jersey in the end,
Yeah.
but he went to school in a couple different places. Went over to Cleveland, and then came home, and then went to Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and came home, and then I know
Then he
was
moved to Florida.
heavily involved in the New York art scene as well. So
Yeah, if you get a good book, a modern book on op pop art, he's in it.
yes,
What was the famous art dealer? She was from Texas, Mary Wells or something like that? Mary somebody. She was all about that period with Andy Warhol and
Yep.
crew. Yeah.
So I know right now there's a couple different Anaskevich pieces on display in the Erie Art Museum because he was a student. He was a student of Plotkin.
Yes.
And so in that way, I think that the art exhibit that they have in place right now is showing Plavkin's influence on all of his different students, and Anaskevich was one of them.
Right.
So
Like Erie has a style. Erie actually has a style in art, which is hard edge, color to color, and as opposed to soft edge. But if you look at even people like John Vahanian with cut glass, and he puts hard edge to hard edge, but there's actually a style that evolved in Erie op pop or modern art, and that's definitely that influence for sure. You can tell if it's from here.
Okay. Well, that was a good discussion. So we'll
Someone
wait
has
to
a
hear next
question.
steps. Oh, but
yes,
Goes back to the mechanics of where the marker is located.
yes.
Do you know if they need an easement from the city?
It depends where it's located. So if it's on private property, then we will need to get permission from the private owner to put it on. If it's on public property, so if we put it in our right of way, then they believe we'll need an easement.
Just know that, and citizens.
So he never taught here. He was.
I don't think Anaskevich taught here. See, I think
Okay,
Ivard taught Plavkin taught
Got it.
everybody.
There's painting.
okay. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. Matthew.
I defer to Director Sprague.
Jackie?
I don't have anything today.
Nothing today.
Nothing to report today.
Okay. Well, that's it. We'll adjourn. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Those in favor, say aye.
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 That passes. Thank you.